Thank you, Andrew, Beate, Lynn, and David. Now we go to the second presentation, a meta-study of recent empirical research in multiple disciplines concerning the connection between law, leadership, and sustainability. And Tineke Lambooy will present the results on behalf of the research group. Please.
Okay, thank you very much. Can you all hear me? Thank you. In 2011 and 2012, two Norwegian researchers, Inger-Marie Hagen and Cecilie Kjelland, conducted, as part of the Sustainable Companies project, the Oslo empirical study. They invested how corporate board members perceived themselves, what their self-perception was of their role. And, I can do that? Sorry. Sorry. So they invested the corporate board members' self-perception of their role and the factors that influenced their decision-making. Their assessment was conducted in light of the company law definition of the role of the board. We, a team from Nijrode Business University in the Netherlands, consisting of Katerina Aïchirou, there, please raise your hand, Sander Tiedeman and myself, conducted a meta-study with the aim to put the empirical Oslo study in a broader perspective. What we did is we collected, published empirical studies based on similar empirical research, and we created the Oslo meta-study database. We categorized all these empirical studies in a mapping report, and we supplemented it with a literature study. We also had individual interviews with about 15 to 20 experts from Nijrode Business University, all scholars with an expertise in company leadership and an interest in sustainability, and some of the sustainable companies experts of Oslo University. And then we organized an expert meeting in March 2013. And since then, we have been working on an academic article to reflect all the findings that we had in this meta-study. The article is almost ready. There's an outline now on the conference website. This is how the database looks, and as of January, you will all have access to this database by using the username and password that we gave to the Oslo Sustainable Companies project. All the articles that we found, so all the empirical studies, are organized in a certain way. You're not supposed to be able to read it now, otherwise you would have wonder eyes, but that is how it looks like. How we did the study is we looked for published academic articles based on empirical research. We looked for recent studies, not older than 5 years, with a geographical focus on Western countries, because that correlates with the Norwegian study, the same background. The concept of leadership we looked at in the context of legal frameworks and political landscape, rather than exploring a sociological and psychological factors that also influence leadership. The term sustainability was defined by us as only the environmental perspective, again, because that was the perspective of the Oslo study, the Sustainable Companies project. For collecting all those empirical studies, we used certain keywords, and we divided the results over 6 categories, 6 academic disciplines or research traditions. Those were corporate governance, organizational dynamics, leadership and management, business ethics, strategic decision-making, and system thinking and social entrepreneurship. In the expert meeting of this year, we aim to discuss and analyze our findings, the findings from the interviews and the findings from the empirical studies in the database. We also wanted to present the proposed research questions and discuss what would be the best way to look at these findings. And then we had developed a conceptual framework on the basis of our findings, what we wanted to present. One of the most interesting findings actually was that the terms leadership, sustainability and law had different definitions and interpretations depending on the discipline or tradition of the expert or the researcher. For instance, leadership, well so we mapped, we made a table with the three concepts, leadership, law and sustainability, and then in each of the research traditions, we cut out the definitions from the empirical studies and we put them in the table. For instance, leadership in the discipline strategy, strategic decision making, is expressed through value creation towards an efficient business model. They say what makes a company successful is a healthy future with long-term profits with results from a healthy business policy. And strategic leadership is a mindset, a process to come to a decision. The strategic objectives of the leaders coincide with the objectives of the company and the objectives of the individuals. So that's the strategic view. However, if you look, for instance, at the discipline business ethics, you come across terms like spirituality and transcending to higher goals or self-consciousness of the leader. So if you look at all these different disciplines, you get very different understandings from about the three terms: leadership, sustainability, and law. And on the basis of all these findings, we created a conceptual framework, which you can read more about in our article. And we discussed this in the expert meeting. Ultimately, after the expert meeting and a lot of other brainstorming sessions, we came to our core research question, and that is, how can corporate law contribute to enable corporate boards in creating sustainable companies? Our intermediate conclusions were that the current reality is at this moment, based on the empirical research studies and other literature, that there's a growing interest of directors in social and environmental issues, that business leaders increasingly integrate sustainability into their decision-making processes, strategy, business goals, and practices, and that the role of law is considered important. There we see a tendency to see law as a compliance issue. At the same time, we also identified gaps and challenges. First one is that most companies do not assess or do not fully assess the sustainability impact of their business activities, neither internally nor externally. Then that there's a demand from investors and other stakeholders for non-financial corporate information on an enterprise basis. So not on an entity basis, a legal entity basis, but on an enterprise basis, the global scope. And then that it's necessary for companies to create a level playing field in sustainability. And that's also where law can come in. And that sustainability is perceived by business leaders as a novel concept with a complex nature. So we identified three key elements that connect sustainability with leadership. The first one is a long-term view, seeing the bigger picture. So what is the role of the company in the society? What are the potential issues, the dependencies, and the opportunities in the future? The second connection could be the environmental and social value creation by a company on top of the financial value creation, because that helps the legitimacy of a company and also to continue the flow of natural resources. And thirdly, the multi-stakeholder approach is really important for decision-making because it creates, again, legitimacy, and it can help to understand this complexity of the term sustainability. Well, when we connect sustainability and leadership with law, we identified three instruments that can help boards. The first one is corporate purpose, as explained by Andrew before me. The second one is board composition, and the third one is reporting. Corporate purpose, it should be important to include environmental and social value creation explicitly in the corporate purpose, in the Articles of Association, and or in a corporate mission statement. It is necessary to show the understanding of the role of the company in the society and to display a long-term view. The board composition, stakeholder representation in decision-making helps legitimacy, and a diverse board composition helps to understand complexity. Reporting, it's important to create transparency about the organization, the organization itself, the legal structure, the business structure, its policies, to what extent it does due diligence, the outcomes thereof, risk appreciation, activities, measuring value creation, put it all in a CSR or integrated report because it can help legitimacy again and can be used as a managerial instrument and as a communication tool for stakeholders. Well, then I come to my conclusion. I have two conclusions. One is that certain instruments of law are crucial for corporate boards to solve this problem of complexity and to attend it with a long-term perspective to create legitimacy. And ultimately, and that is our view, the role of corporate leadership is to guide the company to the future. And at this moment, the most important thing in that is to prioritize legitimization of business with using all those tools. And the second conclusion that we had is that all those academic disciplines often operate in one dimension. So the consequences thereof are that there are different perceptions of the concept of sustainability and also leadership in corporate governance, management, and the other disciplines. So academic studies deal with one perspective that makes the education also fragmented. The students at Nijrode Business Universities have courses in strategy and courses in managerial decision-making and courses in sustainability, but they don't have one course covering it all. Well, we try to do that now. We're setting up a sustainability program. And then you see the same fragmentations within companies. So the students that finish business schools, they go to a department in a company, either management or accounting or human resources or marketing. So the resulting problem is that there's no holistic approach, like what the system dynamics tradition advocates. So every actor only sees his or her own role and pursues his own interest, doesn't see the whole picture of it. And ultimately, those people will also become board members and come across the same problem. Thank you.